Hi everyone, I'm Tamara Green with Walpole Media. Today I'm joined by peer recovery coach Johnny Pike with Riverside Community Care to learn more about the local Connect to Recovery program and the work he does to support substance use recovery. Thank you so much for being with us here today, Johnny. Can you first start by telling us a little bit about yourself and your background?
Sure. I'm a person in long-term recovery. I've been working as a recovery coach at Riverside Community Care Connect to Recovery program for the past almost 4 years now.
When you say you're in long-term recovery, are you saying that you personally have had experience with substance use?
Correct. Yeah. So I chose the path of abstinence for my recovery journey, and that can look different for many people, but that's what I've done for myself, and I've been able to abstain any mood-altering substances for over 5 years now.
Wow, congratulations. That's a major milestone, and I'm sure it must help in the way you are able to work with some of your clients because you've been where they are.
Correct.
So can you explain what Riverside Community Care's Connect to Recovery program is?
Sure. So Connect to Recovery program is a team of peers that are led by recovery coaches, peer specialists, recovery support navigators, community support providers, and the justice involved. So, we have multiple individuals that work with peers on the level of recovery coaching, and then the peer support is generally to connect people with community resources.
What kind of training did you have to go through to become certified, I'm assuming?
Yes, certified. So I'm a certified recovery coach, have been now for almost 2 years. Currently working on my recertification. There's a number of many different facets of training that also coincide with on-the-job training with the hours. So, and then for the original certification, there's a test involved.
So what do you do in your position as a recovery coach?
So I just started working as a recovery coach for the NC8 Coalition. So that recovery coach position is a little bit different than what I've been doing normally. Normally recovery coaching is covered by Mass Health only right now. And I had the opportunity to step into this position to help support people that either have no insurance to get recovery coach services, or people that have commercial insurance. So the gap between services for when people don't have insurance and when people start to piece things back together and may find themselves obtaining commercial insurance and still need support. So that's the role that I have now.
Are you comfortable talking about your personal journey?
Oh yeah, definitely,
Okay,
definitely.
great.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about your personal journey?
Sure. Basically, I can kind of start from the beginning a little bit. I don't know if addiction is nature versus nurture, but for myself, I come from a broken home that had a lot of turmoil. There's good and bad in everything, but for what it's worth, I had experienced a lot of bad. So I grew up in the foster care system for quite a while, until I was probably around like 8 or 9, and had moved back in with my mother once she found recovery. So that journey from there then on, consisted of moving around quite a bit. A lot of what comes with that is not necessarily feeling like I belong. So, I tended to adapt and want to fit in where I could. And part of that, meant kind of going beyond what I was comfortable with, and trying different things. And drugs and alcohol were a big part of that for many years. So, that was a big part of my youth, and leading into my 20s. I had a period of a turnaround period, where I had built a successful, career, married, had children, bought the house, and things were really good. And I had slowly moved over towards more than just the normal weekend, quote unquote, partying and everything like that. The opioid epidemic was a big piece of my story. I was in a car accident when I was 20 years old, and when I had back surgery, and they had let me know that they would no longer be prescribing the opiates, I had moved over towards purchasing them myself. And that continued throughout my 20s into my early 30s. And, it only got exacerbated by, other personal tragedies. I lost my younger brother and my father shortly thereafter, and just couldn't focus on what I knew I needed to focus on with my career, my family, and everything else. The addiction had took hold, and I knew I needed support. So, that journey consisted of, several detoxes, rehabs, and, outpatient programs until 2019. I had worked, several different programs of recovery, and found what worked best for me, and I've been on that path ever since.
That's an incredible story, and I think the last point is particularly significant. What works for you may not necessarily work for someone else.
Correct.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. What led to the establishment of the Connect to Recovery program in the first place?
Yeah, so I know that Connect to Recovery was established over 5 years ago. I roughly came in maybe a little over a year after it began. The need was present to have more peer support in the general area of which we live in, the Norfolk County, Norwood, Bellingham, and Somerville. So they put together a group of recovery coaches and peer support navigators to help people along with their journey, just fill the gap and help them understand what they wanted to do for their recovery.
The program has community partnerships. Can you tell us what entities in Walpole you work with?
Sure. A big recovery entity is Turning Point Recovery Center. That has been most recently for me a resource and a source of connecting people seeking recovery to other community connections. Generally, we're not limited to just the peer recovery world, or like recovery centers. There are plenty of outpatient services that are connected within the area that we utilize as well, and that may be clinicians, therapists, and medication providers.
Can you tell us a little bit about the training that the coaches receive?
Sure. So there's many facets of training, many hours, I should say, as well. Different areas. It could tie into motivational interviewing, the technique that we use, self-care, addictions 101. Kind of get into theory of what it's all about. And there are many others that are coming up that are more fine-tuned to help establish more of a connection for a coach in a defined role. So with this role, I'm not necessarily 100% what to expect, like within the community. So I've kind of been taking a lot more all the trainings. I recently just completed like recovery coaching in the justice setting, recovery coaching in the emergency room setting, and just to have a better understanding of what that looks like and what the peer role is expected of in those settings.
Are these group sessions or individual sessions?
They're group sessions, in person and over Zoom.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Um, in what ways do peer support and mutual experience support one's recovery journey?
Uh, so I believe the peer support is somebody with mutual experience. There's a connection there that can't necessarily be met by most. An understanding of what somebody has went through or maybe going through at that particular time. So the common terminology is similar to like a mentor. To kind of guide somebody through what they have done themselves. So I tend to utilize what somebody's already have experienced, what they may want to experience, and if I can tie in my own experience where it sees fit, then that's the bigger piece of connection, that the rapport that you have with somebody.
Are most of the coaches recovering themselves?
Yes. So as far as I know, part of it's part of the journey there is that somebody's in their own recovery journey as well.
Okay, that's a requirement.
Right.
Okay. Describe the skills you work with when participating in the program.
Sure. So, I mentioned some of the facets of the training, like the motivational interviewing. That's a big piece. I often consider myself a good listener. Rarely do I necessarily have to be the one talking. It's not about me. So it's generally focused on what that person wants and what they're willing to do.
What is a support network and why are they so important?
Yeah, so a support network is generally people like-minded that are doing things in an area of life that you're able to connect with. Maybe create some form of day structure, support for emotional support. Literally, there's many different recovery programs that are out there. Not just the general fellowship programs that are commonly known. And when you get a chance to connect with others that are like-minded or driven in the same area of your focus, then there's just more to it than not. The whole idea of community support, getting connected, is so that there's more of a base of a network of people to help you figure out what you want to do.
What role does community play in the recovery process and how is that implemented in the program?
Community is big. There's often a sense of not necessarily feeling like you belong while you're out there doing whatever it was that became unmanageable. So, by gaining a sense of community, whether it's the recovery community or the actual community at hand, lost dreams awaken, new possibilities arise. So that basically allows us to figure out what we want to do and where to apply ourselves. And many of us are in the community, doing what we want to do now, and that's big. A sense of accomplishment and a connection with others, in your general area is always something that I know that I've strived for myself, and see that I'm been able to work with.
Do you know if statistically those in recovery have a better success rate when they have a community than those who don't?
So, numbers, there's many different areas to look at as far as statistics. There is an overall knowledge of, somebody being able to utilize the community, their connections, their network, most likely have a better chance at figuring out, their path to get past whatever's unmanageable for them.
And I know you said for you, complete abstinence works.
Right.
Have you worked with people who have continued recreational use only?
Yeah. So my path happens to be abstinence. I know for me, I can't put a substance. I can't use a substance. I can't drink anything because the progression is quicker than most. But everybody's different. And everybody has a different path. There's harm reduction. And what that looks like may be moderation. Utilizing safety, there are plenty of services and resources out there to make sure that somebody is connected and can be connected, and using safety. I would rather see somebody have another chance to figure out what they want to do than not.
What does recovery-oriented language mean?
So recovery-oriented language is hits home for me because there's a lot of different forms for how that's implemented. There's general terms that are out there that can be both positive and negative. There's the way our words carry. Most people don't necessarily see as intending harm, but there's a stigma, there's a generation factor, there's so many different factors that tie into how we carry ourselves and what words we use. And within the recovery community, there's been an agent of change to kind of take back some of those words and replace them, and create a more sustainable impact on how people represent what they're doing for themselves.
Thank you. What does it mean for a recovery coach to be trauma-informed, and why is that important to supporting one's own recovery journey?
So for a recovery coach to be trauma-informed really sets the precedence for that connection with the person being served. There's obviously many levels and many different forms of trauma, and to be able to present oneself in a caring manner that is more approachable than not, is a big factor in somebody utilizing like the connection they have with the coach.
Okay, thank you. What does it mean to create a safe space, and how important is it to one's recovery?
I believe it's real important. So for myself and others, along the road of recovery, if you're not able to be open and honest with where you're at, with what you have going on, then it may be an obstruction towards your path to recovery. So, creating that safe space could be as simple as just being supportive and listening to, what you have going on.
So a safe space isn't necessarily a physical space. It's more of a concept of how they are working with their recovery. Does that?
Yeah, I mean that's how I see it. And it could be as simple as a safe space as well in the community. There's I like to think of it as more of the environment of like the approach, the art of recovery coaching.
Okay, all right. Thank you. What local resources do you typically collaborate with or refer individuals to?
So there's many different resources that are available. So, we had mentioned the recovery support centers, peer recovery support centers. They generally work along the same idea of connecting people to other community resources. Being able to establish oneself and actually utilize, community supports, may look different from one to the next. It could be financial supports, housing supports, therapeutic supports. But we don't necessarily know until that person comes to the table and puts together their goals.
Are people referred to Riverside Community Care, or do they voluntarily self-check?
So it's both, but I would say a majority is a referral source. Basically, our outreach is within the recovery community. A lot of people that we typically work with are in the beginning stages of their journey. They may be coming out of a detox setting. They may be living in a sober community. They may self-refer as well, because word of mouth is big. They have understanding that one person was able to connect and figure out what worked for them, and they want to do that as well.
You mentioned detox before, so I'm assuming that detox should not be self-treated, that it should be under the care of someone who's...
Yeah, so I don't step into that realm of answering that question to be specific, but if we're taking a step back and if that setting in itself is generally managed in a medical setting. So whatever it may be, however it be presented, I know for myself it did involve medication-assisted treatment, and they monitor and they work with people to again along the same idea of like what we're doing, connect people to community resources. So quite often like we are the resources that connect them to further resources.
Sure, that makes sense. Thank you. What is the greatest challenge that you face as a recovery coach?
Sure. So, I think the greatest challenge is being able to step away at the end of the day and maintain my boundaries and, go and be present like with my family. So often, the different stages of people's recovery, can be quite obtrusive, and they have a lot going on, and there is a secondary trauma that gets carried with you, and it's not easy to close that off. At the end of the day, I'm an empath. I'm sympathetic to one's journey, and always want to see the brighter outcome, but it doesn't always present itself, and it's hard to disconnect from the negative connotations that kind of come along with some of that.
And speaking of your family, what, if any, role did they play in your recovery?
Yeah, so I've been married now for 19 years, and there's been a significant shift in how that has been presented into my recovery journey. Literally in the beginning, it was, John, you have a problem, you need to go get help. Or, John, it's time to leave, we don't want you around, there's tough love. and then turn the tide to my wife and other family like within our immediate network. Have more of an understanding of what recovery is and what addiction is. So, what that may look like for somebody is multiple tries to, figure out what their path is. And, my wife has been an intricate part. She's never dealt with any or all of this, like, up front for like herself, but she is able to connect with like my connections and be part of the community. We're a community that likes to get together, that likes to do things. I mentioned earlier, lost dreams awaken, new possibilities arise. Like that, that's just it. We get to travel now. We get to do things that we were limited to once before. So, short and sweet. That's my wife in a nutshell. She's figured out what works best for her to take care of herself in order to be there to support me as well, which is big.
It is big because no one can make you go to recovery, or no one can make you stay sober. Only you can. What is your favorite part of being a recovery coach?
So if we're going to go to the opposite end of the challenges, there are many things that happen along the way that people are able to put together and become employed and take those next steps into their own housing, the next steps like within life, regain, recapture. In order to recover is to get something back, right? That's not necessarily always the case, but to watch somebody figure out what it is they want to get back, or what they actually want to obtain in life, and go after it, and it's a beautiful process. It's all their work. We get a chance to do for, do with, and then we watch them do, and that's big. So that in itself has been definitely heartwarming at times, and it kind of negates some of the other stuff that we deal with as we kind of go along in this process of supporting someone.
Sure. So how do you not take it home with you?
Yeah, so there are many ways for me to figure out what my boundaries are. And that in itself is just it. I have to establish clear boundaries of my work life and my personal life. I'm lucky that the work phone is a phone that I can shut off at 5 o'clock, and I can go home and be with my family and have my time. That's just it. I need to establish those boundaries and commit to them. Early on in my journey of recovery coaching, you can, obviously get connected to one's journey and want to see that you can, help manage or fix, but that's not the case. It's somebody's the right to self-determination to figure that out. So, in order for me to step back and see that, I had to learn what that looked like, and the clear line is establishing boundaries and holding on to those boundaries.
What would you say to someone who is struggling with addiction who hasn't yet started their recovery process?
Yeah, so that there is hope. There is hope. There is connection out there. The opposite of addiction is connection. What that may look like for you, come on in, we'll figure it out. The bigger piece of what's out there is that not many people necessarily know what's out there, and they're held back by thinking that there is not a path for them to move forward on. But there's many resources in many different areas, and I'm here to help be a resource broker and find that for them.
Wonderful, thank you. This has been extremely informative. Is there something you'd like to add?
Just that I'm grateful for the opportunity to come in and represent, Connect to Recovery, Riverside Community Care, the work that the team at Connect to Recovery and Riverside Community Care are doing to support, people in their journey for recovery. So I appreciate the opportunity today. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you again for sharing your story with us.
Thank you.
Thank you all for being here today. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like and subscribing to our YouTube channel. For Walpole Media, I'm Tamara Green.